Are we in? Okay, we are in. Looks like we are active. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody who is checking in, wherever you are checking in from. Y'all see the topic started a little bit later than I wanted to start today. Had to respond to a couple things, had to check a couple things email wise, but we are in here. And oops, I didn't put one. All right. Now, can y'all hear me over there? Make sure everybody can hear me. I forgot to put the mic on. So as y'all are coming in, good morning, evening, afternoon to everybody who is checking in. Miss Wright Thompson, I was just watching one of your prior posts. What was I talking about? The prior post you saw, what was I talking about? So anyway, as y'all are coming in, y'all should be able to hear me. All right, no, you should be able to hear me. I didn't have the mic on. So now the mic's on. We are live, and we got 6 different places we are going live right now. So shout out to the Wi-Fi. Cat Galaxy, what's going on? Good morning over there on TikTok. Law of Inertia, yes, I talk about that a lot. I got a whole episode of my show talking about that. So you should make sure you check the Work on Your Game Masterclass, because those are just clips. Yeah, those are just clips. You should check the whole episodes and just go to Work on Your Game Masterclass or look it up on Spotify, Apple. You can find those. So anyway, what we are talking about here today, folks, we are talking principles, strategies, and tactics. I'm going to explain what these are. I'm going to explain why they are, and I want to explain why they go in a particular order. So you can see in the title here, wherever you are watching this, I use the same title everywhere, that they go in a particular order, and often people get this order of operations wrong, or they don't even understand. Actually, what usually happens is people don't even understand this order of operations. So what I'm going to do here today is explain this, because most people don't understand this. They're not aware of it. And sometimes, of course, actually not sometimes, most of the time people are not following this because they don't understand it. Or sometimes people can be following it and you don't even realize why or how you're following it, because you just don't know what you don't know. But the good news is, here's the good news about all of this, is that you have me here, and it is literally my job to explain this to you so that you understand it, and you understand it really well. And hopefully, based on what you hear today and the next steps that you're going to take, which should be coming into our university, now you can start putting these things into action and using them in the right way to take yourself from where you are to where you want to go. Because I'm assuming that most of you listening to this, you probably want to get better, go further, achieve more, win more, make more money, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm assuming you just want to get better. You want to get better, not just stay in the same spot. Tommy said, used to watch the basketball videos back in the day. That's what's up. I appreciate you. Good to see you here. So, and by the way, once I get into my topic, I will address all questions at the end. So first of all, let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 35 books, done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we take the tools to help athletes get to the top of the sports world. We translate them over to the business and professional world and everyday life to help you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and of course, produce more results. And when we say more results in the sports world, that might be winning games and getting trophies. In the business world, that usually means making money, maybe serving more people, serving people at a higher level, whatever your goal is, and producing your result. Once we're clear on that, we're going to help you get consistent at performing at the highest level and doing exactly that. That's what we do at our company, Work on Your Game. We have a university called literally Work on Your Game University. That's where you can work with us directly. I'll tell you about that later. Let's get into our points. We're talking here today about principles, strategies, and tactics. And I'm going to explain to you all how these work, why there is a hierarchy. And again, as I'm explaining this, you're going to understand why many people mess this up, because they simply are unaware. It's not that they're trying to mess up. They just don't know what they don't know. But the good news is, again, I'm in the game to help you understand things that you maybe have never thought about. So the first thing is the principle. What is a principle? Definition of it. And when I say principle, I don't mean like the principal of your high school. I mean principle with an L-E on the end. And a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of belief or behavior for a chain of reasoning. That's the definition out of the dictionary, but let's simplify this and talk about it. Principles mean your big picture, overall understandings of what you're doing, why you are doing it, and the governing body, so to speak, for how you do things. Let me give you an example. Just a couple days ago, it wasn't yesterday, but a couple days ago, if you follow me when I do these streams, or you're in the back end of our university, there's a training called the 12 Work on Your Game Commandments. And when I talked about the 12 Work on Your Game Commandments, what I was giving you was the principles of what Work on Your Game is about. That's literally what it is. I was giving you the principles. And I want you to understand something about principles, everyone. Principles are unchanging. they are non-negotiable, and there are no exceptions. When you have a principle, they are unchanging, non-negotiable, and there are no exceptions. So if you want to see an example of somewhere where people have principles, look to a religion. Any of you who is a devout follower of a religion, you're actively participating and practicing a religion. Religions have principles. There are religions to being a Muslim. There are religions to being a Jew. There are religions to being a Christian. There are not religious principles, excuse me. There are principles to those things. And when you follow one of those religions, if you're an active follower, you know what the principles are. Now, it doesn't mean that you are perfect in executing on those principles, but you understand when you're violating, you know you're violating. And when you are living by the principle, you know you're living by the principle. The challenge that a lot of people have, especially true with entrepreneurs and professionals, is that there are no guiding principles for how you are doing what you're doing, why you're doing it, or what you're doing. And when you have no guiding principles, what you get is chaos, because principles are a reflection of standards. When you have clear principles, you have standards. When you have standards, then everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, why and how they're supposed to be doing it. And this is why principles matter so much. And this is why at Work on Your Game, we literally have 12 Work on Your Game commandments. They're the principles of what we're about. And if anyone who comes into our world, when they understand those principles, they will understand, okay, this is a place that might be for me, or this is a place that I know is not for me, because maybe one of those principles is just something that you wouldn't be okay with. You don't want to be on board with. But many people, actually, let me back up. Many companies, for example, any of you who works at a business and as an employee, they usually have some type of principles. Hopefully they have some principles, and the principles should be clearly articulated so that everybody knows what they are, how they are, why they are, and how they work. People should know the principles of a business. Anybody who's created any type of movement, like, so if you look at people who have big movements these days, whether it can be a musician, it can be an influencer, it can be somebody who's some type of coach or a business that was built from the ground up. Usually there are some principles that they have that get other people to buy in. People buy in because they buy into the principles. So whatever those principles are, people buy into it. So you could take something that's simple. It can be a simple thing. It doesn't have to be something super serious. So you take someone like Taylor Swift, who's a very famous artist. Like, everybody knows who she is, even if you don't listen to her music. There are some aligning ideas. She probably doesn't call them principles, but aligning ideas that her fans all connect with. And that's the reason why they're her fans. You take someone like Beyonce and her fan base, they call themselves the Beehive, right? And what's their connection? Their connection is that they're super fans of Beyonce. That's one of their guiding principles that make people want to follow them. Now, those aren't the kind of principles that I'm talking about. The point being, these are things that everyone who's in the group aligns with, and anyone who's not in the group, they don't align with. All right. So I'm not in either one of those groups, but I understand that they have the group. And the reason they have a following is because they're giving people something to go along with. And in your business, you need to give people something to go along with. And forget about your business. Let's talk about you. You need to have your own principles. So here's a question. What are your principles? All right. And I'm not saying you need to lay them all out on paper right now to me, but you should have an answer to the question. What are your principles? All right. Do you know? All right. What are the guiding truths, beliefs, realizations, things that you stand on that you will never bend on, that absolutely are absolutely the bedrocks of what you're about? What are your principles? Your big picture overall understandings of what you're doing, what you're about, and everything you do needs to be based on those principles. Some people may use different language for this. They may call it their fundamentals. Some people in business companies may call it their mission statement, which I don't really like the concept of the mission statement, but the mission statement can be based around principles if you have one. A lot of people don't have any. All right. What are your principles? One principles that I've shared here, and I talked about this a couple of days ago when I talked about the Work on Your Game commandments. The same things, the same way every time. I talk about being early is on time is late is forgotten. Time is your most valuable resource. You're in the business of marketing your stuff, not in the business of doing your stuff. And when I say these are principles, what I mean is that they don't change. It doesn't matter what the situation is, doesn't matter who I'm talking to. These principles do not change. They are inflexible, meaning you will never waver on them no matter what happens around you. And this is one of the reasons why in society, and I talk about current events sometimes in these lives, this is not the topic today, but in society, the reason why we have so much chaos in our world today is because people either don't have principles or they are bending on their principles. And there's no such thing as bending on a principle, folks. There's no such thing as an exception to a principle. That doesn't exist. So if you see a person making an exception to a principle, then they're doing something wrong. So, for example, you see people who are pastors who work in the Christian church who will go and support things like aborting a child, or what's another thing they're doing? They're supporting the T word that I can't say when someone is changing from being a male to being a female. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I can't say it because TikTok keeps knocking down my lives or giving me warnings when I use certain terms. So I got to be careful what terms I say, but I know what I'm talking about. There's no way you can be a follower of the principles of that religion and still be okay with those things. You can't bend on that, because in the principles of that religion, in its text, its foundational text, those things are not allowed. So if you're going along with it, then you are bending on principles, which means you don't have any principles. And you, again, forget about them. Let's go back to you. What are your principles? And if you don't know, or you don't have any, this may be a reason why you're getting uneven results, or it's hard for you to make decisions, or it's hard for you to make choices. And it's hard for you to decide where to go, what to do, what step to take next, because you have no principles. You have no principles that are guiding you. In other words, you have no guardrails. You're driving on a road that has no lines. There are no rails, and you can just go anywhere, and it doesn't matter where you end up because there's nothing guiding you. All right. So the more firm and sure you are with your principles, the much easier it is to make decisions, because you can just look at your principles. All right. Does this go with my principles? Yes or no? Does this go with what I'm supposed to be about? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, you do it. The answer is no, you don't do it. But if you don't have any, well, then it's hard to make choices. You get the paradox of choice. Paradox of choice is when you have so many options, you don't know which one to take, because you don't have anything telling you what is okay and what's not okay. This is why, again, people who follow a religion devoutly, all they have to do anytime they need to make a choice is ask themselves, okay, what does my religion say about this? Because they're following those principles. I'm not telling you need to become a religious person. I'm saying you need to have principles the same way that they do. And if you don't have any, again, this is probably why you take so long to make decisions. You don't know what to do, or you make one decision one day, the next day you make the exact opposite decision, because there's nothing guiding your choices. There's nothing guiding your decision-making process. You need to fix that. And the principle goes at the top. And when you're clear on your principles, then it's easy to do number two. And let's move into point number two. Point number two is about the strategy. Strategy. Most people are familiar with the concept of strategy, even if you don't call it that. Strategy is simply about how to. Whenever you get someone asking a how-to question, or you find yourself asking a how-to question, how do I do this? How do I do that? What you're asking about is a strategy. Because strategy is simply a plan of action designed to achieve a goal. All right, that's all a strategy is. So any of you who's ever had a plan, or at least you thought you had a plan to achieve an outcome, that's a strategy. And just because if your plan doesn't necessarily work, doesn't mean there was something wrong with not necessarily wrong, something wrong with your strategy, or that you didn't have one. Sometimes plans simply don't work out because, when they meet with life, as they say, real life alters the lab test. So the more firm you are in your principles, understand, the easier it is to come up with a strategy. So the more clear your principles are, this is what we're about, this is what we're not about, the easier it is to decide what to do. So if I say something like, my principle is I'm always going to be in great shape, then it's easy for me to decide, am I going to work out on a consistent basis? Well, of course I am, because the principle is I'm always going to be in shape. And remember, principles don't change. So if my principle is I'm always going to be in great shape, then the strategy of am I going to work out or not, just the question is easy to answer, because the question is based on, all I got to do is refer to my principles. All right, what's my principle when it comes to fitness? I'm always going to be in great shape. Okay, so that means it's a no-brainer whether or not I'm going to work out, because in order to be in great shape, I have to work out. So you see how easy it is to make decisions, and how easy it is to craft a plan, or at least the skeleton of a plan, when your principles are clear. So if your principle in business is we will always make sure that we do something to satisfy our customers and our clients. So anytime we have an unhappy customer or client, we will do what is necessary to satisfy that person. So when a customer comes to you with a complaint or asking for a refund or some type of challenge, well, what's the principle? We're always going to do things to satisfy our customers and clients. Okay, so that means you need to satisfy the customer or client however you need to do it. Even if it means giving a refund to someone who shouldn't even get a refund, even if it means serving someone who's kind of being a jerk, your principle already told you what you need to do. All right, there's no questioning that. When you're clear on your principles, again, the strategies become a whole lot easier. The reason that many people, because this is usually where people end up, is in this how-to. I talk to people all the time who say, well, Dre, I'm trying to achieve ABC, whatever outcome, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. I don't know what steps to take. Well, it's an interesting question, because there's a whole lot of people out there, myself included, who are putting out a whole bunch of how-to material out on the internet, generally virtually for free. So it's interesting that people have the challenge of they don't know what to do or how to do it when there's so much information out there as to how to do it. The reason why this is because people have the paradox of choice. There are too many options. So you don't know which one to listen to, who to follow, who to ignore, etc. That's one reason. Another reason is people don't have principles. When you don't have principles, any strategy could possibly work because you have nothing guiding you. You have nothing saying you can't go that way. You have nothing saying you have to stay within these lines. You have nothing saying you have to do something that satisfies this because there's no principle. So now you have the whole wide world open to you. You could pretty much do anything and you end up doing nothing because you have too many choices. So there's this old fable about a horse who was really hungry and really thirsty. And he was walking, looking for some food and looking for some water. Finally, he comes to a spot and he notices that there is food 10 feet to the right and there is water 10 feet to the left. So my question is, which one do you think he went to first? And the answer is, this is a trick question. The horse actually died because he died of starvation and of thirst, because while he was standing there trying to decide which one to go to first, he ran out of time and he died because he couldn't decide which one to do. He couldn't decide if he wanted the water first or the food first. So while he was trying to think about it, he died thinking about it. And that's what happens to people when you don't have clear principles. What the horse should have done was going to get the water, because you can last without food a lot longer than you can last without water. So if the horse was smart, and the horse wasn't that smart, he would have got the water first and then went and got the food. But because he didn't have a clear principle and a clear decision-making process, he ended up messing up. And that's the same thing many of you are doing. I'm not saying you're going to die of thirst or hunger. What I'm saying is you're dying of wasted time because you don't have a principle directing what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So if one of your principles is that early is on time is late, and late is forgotten, then you will craft a strategy to make sure that you're early for everything that you do. See how that works? Or make sure you're at least doing things within the time frame that is acceptable. So you don't have to figure too many things out when you have the clear principles in place. All you have to do is craft a strategy to execute on your own principles. Your principles direct your strategies. Everybody got that? Your principles direct your strategies. So if you're having a hard time figuring out what to do, i.e. you're challenged with crafting a strategy, the question you should ask yourself is not, how do I figure this out? The question should be, what are my principles? Because your principles will tell you exactly what to do. But if you don't have any principles, then that's why you're having trouble crafting the strategy. Everybody following what I'm saying here? Good. Let's move on to point number 3. And I'll address questions at the end if anybody has any. Third thing is the tactics. Now, what is the tactic? The tactic is, by definition, the art or skill of employing available means to accomplish an end. What does that mean? It simply means, what do you do in the moment? Something happens, what do you do? Something happens, what do you do? The challenge with tactics. Here's the challenge with tactics. First of all, everybody is usually focused tactically, and they're trying to be tacticians rather than being strategists and rather than being driven by principle. Most people who think they're executing on a strategy is actually being a tactician. So whenever you hear people say something like, I'm playing chess, not checkers. You ever hear somebody say that? Maybe some of you have said it before. Most of the time when people say that, first of all, they don't even know how to play chess, but they call themselves playing chess, not checkers, which is a funny thing. Even though it's not, it's a metaphor, but it's still a funny thing. Someone doesn't know how to play chess, but they say they're playing chess, not checkers. And secondly, most of the time people think they're being strategic. They're actually being tactical. All tactical means is that something happens, you immediately respond to it. That's a tactic. So if something occurs right now, you immediately reply to that. Something happens, you respond to that. Something happens, you respond to that. The good news about being a good tactician is that if you're a solid, skilled tactician, you can achieve success just being reactive. All tactics are about being reactive. Something happens, you react. Something happens, you react. Something else happens, you just keep doing that all day. It's like playing whack-a-mole. You ever been to an arcade and they have that whack-a-mole game? You got the little mallet, an animal pops up and you knock it down. Another one pops up, you knock it down. Then 2 pop up, you knock them down. Then it just keep popping up. And the whole purpose is for the game to overwhelm you and send you so many things to deal with that you run out of time to actually respond to it all. Then you lose the game. All right, that's how many people live their lives. That is being tactical. What I just described, that's what it means to be tactical. Something happens, you react. Another thing happens, you react. You just spend your whole day in reactive mode. The good thing about this is if you're a good reactor, you can create some success just reacting to stuff. The bad thing about this, or the challenge with this is a better way of saying it, is that you'll eventually burn yourself out being a tactician. And any of you who runs a business, you know exactly what I mean. This is like, what it feels like is you are working hard all day or all week or all month or all year. And you get to the end of the day and you're like, damn, I'm tired as hell from all this work I did. But eventually when you take a step backwards and you look at the big picture of what you're doing, you feel like, All right, I'm not really making any progress. I'm doing all this hard work, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm still in the same spot right now that I was in 6 months ago, even though I'm working hard as hell every day. That's how it feels when you are being a tactician. When you are driven by tactics, that's how it feels. You're good at it because, I mean, at least you're staying alive. You're running on the treadmill. You didn't get thrown off the treadmill. You're running. But the problem is you're still in the same spot. All right, that's the issue with running on the treadmill. All right, you can run for miles, and then you get off the treadmill, you're still in the same spot that you were in before. And again, that's a metaphor. I know a treadmill doesn't actually take you somewhere. And this is what happens when you're tactical. When you're strategic, on the other hand, you are using tactics to move you towards a desired end because you have it all planned out ahead of time. And again, I just told you, principles drive strategies, strategies drive tactics. The challenge for many people, and in my experience, I've worked with a lot of professionals, a lot of entrepreneurs, challenge with a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, because you all get to make your own plans. When you work at a company, at least they tell you what to do. When you're an entrepreneur, you tell yourself what to do. Many entrepreneurs are just driven by tactics. They just spend everything they do is just tactical. All right, let me do this. Let me do that. Okay, I'm finished with that. That's done. That worked. Let me do this. That didn't work. Let me do this. And they spend their entire careers, at least until they come across somebody like me, just being tactical. They don't have any clear strategies, and they definitely don't have any principles. And this is why they end up stuck. Because eventually, when you are a tactician, even if you're a very good tactician, eventually your tactics stop working. Eventually, whatever tactics you're using, they don't keep producing results. And now you're like, well, okay, now the thing that I was doing up to this point is no longer working. What do I do now? That's the point that many entrepreneurs eventually get to. When good timing is not working for you anymore, when you're, we won't call it luck, let's just call it good timing. Maybe fortune was shining on you and things were working, and things start to get a little bit more challenging, and you need a strategy for things to work. If you don't have one, then all of a sudden things ain't working. Now you're like, well, what do I do now? All right. Now what's my next step? Now what do I do? Tactics are used to execute on strategies. Okay. So without a strategy, a tactic is, again, you running on the treadmill. And tactics are interchangeable. What I mean by that is you can change a tactic from day to day, moment by moment, week by week. Your strategy does not change as quickly as your tactics do, and your principles never change. So tactics change very quickly. Strategies change slowly, if at all, and principles change never. And those are etched in stone. Okay. Principles change never. So if you look at, for example, I'll give you like the framework of when I do these lives. Usually I'll tell you the topic. I give you an introduction to the topic. I introduce myself. Then I go into my points. Sometimes it's 3 points, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, but I use the same framework over and over again. So the tactics are the points of what I'm talking about, because every day I'm using a different subject. The strategy is the framework of how I do it, which is pretty much the same every time. The principles are that I'm going to do it, period. I'm just giving you a rough example of here of how this kind of stuff works. So the principle is that I'll give you an example here. So a principle is that anybody who's going to be in the thought leadership space. So if you're an author, a speaker, a coach, or anything like that, that you probably should publish some content so that people can get to sample you and your stuff and get a feel for who you are, what you're about, and how you do your thing. If you want to be prolific, you could be prolific. You want to put out a ton of content like I do, you could do that. You want to put out some, you could do that. You want to put out some every once in a while, but you should put something out there so people know who you are, they know what you're about, and then get a taste of your style. A tactic, or a strategy rather, is how you're going to do it. Your strategy could be, I'm just going to nail and hammer on LinkedIn, or I'm just going to make a great YouTube channel, or I'm going to just start killing it on Instagram, or I'm going to be real famous on TikTok. So your strategy can be which platform you want to use, and the strategies can change because platforms can come and they can go. All right. A platform can disappear. All right. There are social media platforms that were out 10 years ago that are not out anymore. And some of the ones we're using today will not be here 10 years from now. It may not seem like that's possible, but that's going to happen. That's a strategy. The tactic, however, is what exactly are you talking about? Because today I'm talking about this subject, and I could talk about a different subject every day for 365 days in a row. I don't know if every thought leader can do that, but I have the ability to do that. So the principle is I'm doing it. Strategy is what I'm using to do it. And the tactic is what exactly I talk about. So you see how they go in a hierarchy? So tactics are driven by strategy, and strategy is driven by principles. So if you don't have a strategy and you don't have principles that are governing your tactics, then again, this is how you get burnout. So any entrepreneurs listening to this, you ever felt burnt out, or if you feel burned out right now, it's because you are doing everything tactically. There's no guiding plan telling you what to do next, when to do it, why, or how to do it. And you have no principles that are governing everything. And this is why it feels like, again, it doesn't even feel like this is truth. you're doing a whole lot of work and giving a whole lot of effort. Even if you are very good, you may be surviving, maybe even doing well, but eventually you're going to run out of time, run out of energy, or run out of talent just being tactical. So this is why you want to ascend to a higher level of thinking, to where you're seeing the bigger picture. As the saying goes, seeing the trees from the forest. All right, so you got the soldiers down in the dirt going over and doing stuff, doing their tactical things. Then you have the lieutenants maybe who can see what each battalion of soldiers is doing. Then you had a general who can see the entire battlefield. They can see everything. So you got to be able to elevate to a higher level of seeing the situation from a bigger picture. It'll help you make better decisions as far as what you're doing and why you are doing it. So let me recap my 3 points here. We're talking principles and strategies and tactics. And I'll take questions. You got a question or comment, put it in the comment section. I'll address it in a minute. So a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of belief or behavior for a chain of reasoning. To put that in simple terms, principles are unbending, unchanging. There are no exceptions, and they stay the same. They're etched in stone. You do not change a principle. You do not bend on a principle. There are no exceptions to a principle. When you have clear principles, this is what you're about, this is what you're standing on, and you are never, ever moving from that square. The challenge that we have in the world today with people in general, in societies and in businesses, is that many people have no principles. You have zero principles. You just go with whatever seems to be expedient and whatever seems to work. And the result of this, the more people we have who live like this, the more chaos we get. You get chaos and disorder when there are no guiding principles. Number 2 is a strategy. Strategy is simply a plan of action designed to achieve a goal. Strategy is guided by a principle. So when you have clear principles, your strategy is told what to do by its principles. You craft a game plan of what you're going to do. And your plan need not be perfect, but you should have a plan. Plans are useless because often they don't end up going anywhere, any way that we think they're going to go. But planning is priceless, because when you take the time to plan, you're taking time to foresee what's going to happen before it happens, and you're putting your mind to use. This is the most powerful tool that you have available to you. And if you don't use it by not planning ahead, then you won't get as good of results as if you did use it. If you just think about what might happen before things occur, even if you end up being wrong in some ways, the time that you took to think about it becomes very valuable, even if your plans are not perfect. And no plan is perfect, by the way. Any plan made by a human being is not perfect, because human beings are imperfect individuals. And number 3 is the tactics. Tactics are just the action steps that you take right there in the moment. Most people spend their entire lives just doing things tactically, even though many people think they're being strategic. You hear people saying, I'm playing chess, not checkers, and they don't even know how to play chess. So it's funny that they say things like that. Most people don't know how to map out a long-term strategy because they don't have any principles. And many people start to believe that they're being strategic because their tactics are working. Just because your tactics are working does not mean you are strategic. It just means your tactics are working. Maybe you're in the right market at the right time, in the right place with the right product and the right customers, and you have the right skills. That can work. For many years when I was doing my business, I've officially been doing my business since probably 2010. Even though I wasn't doing it full time then, I was still playing sports. But I've been doing it full time since 2015. But even then, even in 2015, when I was doing my business full time, there were years that I was spending where I just felt like, man, how am I working so hard? But I feel like I'm not really making substantial progress, even though I'm doing all this hard work. I spent the whole day working. I did a whole lot of stuff, but I still feel like I'm not really progressing and really making significant steps forward. Is because I was being very tactical. I was good at my tactics. I was making money, making sales, had customers, building an audience, but there was no long-term plan. And that's how you know you're tactical. If you don't have a long-term plan for where you are going, even if you can't get there yet, if you don't have a plan, you are being tactical. You are not being strategic. When you are strategic, there is a long-term plan of what you want to do. And it is documented to where if I said, let me see your long-term plan, you can show it to me. You can say, here's the plan right here. And you can show me the plan. If you don't have that, you are not being strategic. You are being tactical. And again, you can be successful with tactics until you're not. All right. And then when you're not, that's when you're stuck. And that's when you got to get things fixed. And that's one of the times that people end up coming my way, because they realize that our tactics are taking me as far as they can take me. Some people's tactics can get you to $1 million. Some people's tactics can get you to 100,000. Some people's tactics can get you to 20,000. Some people's tactics can make you your first $100. But eventually, everyone who is only being tactical, eventually that luck will run out, and you must do something different. And you must elevate to a higher level of thinking, which is strategy. And over top of that, principle. All right. So with that said, you got a question or comment, put it in the comment section. I'll address it right now. Or if you already did, I'm going to scroll through and address. Let me see what we got. I'll do TikTok first, and I'll go over to Instagram. I looked at the other ones. I don't think I had any. So let's see what we got. Cat Galaxy. I appreciate that. All right, I might get you on a security team. All right, do you want to do that? I'll get you on a security team. You sell cats a fade from me. All right, but you can't be beating up people for no reason. All right, Vihana Mira. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming in. Let's see. If you got a question on TikTok, go ahead and post it, and I'm addressing them right now. TikTok still needs to give me a filter to just show me comments instead of showing me who joined, who liked it, and all this stuff. It makes it hard to identify the comments. Chop Z said, used to watch the hooping videos. That's what's up. Shout out to people who used to watch those hooping videos. I stopped playing basketball in 2015. So you've been away for a while, but I'm glad you still find me anyway. So somebody said I can pin a comment, tag a comment to pin. Moderators can do this too. All right, I got to find out how to pin comments because I'll put my own pin comment on here. Let's see. Thoughts on sales jobs? Well, generally, I mean, it's a very broad question, but generally I like sales jobs because a sales job is a good place to learn how to sell. And selling is a long-term force multiplying future-proof skill. In other words, learning how to sell is never a bad thing. Any of you who's good at selling, you will get better at everything else you do. Selling makes everything else you do better. You'll get better at getting dates. You'll get better at, of course, selling your products and services. You get better at getting people to go along with your ideas. You'll get better at people listening to you. You'll have more confidence. And of course, if you're good at selling, you should be making more money. So there's no downside to getting good at selling. Selling is a lifelong skill that applies in everything that you could possibly do. Let's see. Anything else? Somebody said you had to delegate and get others to run the treadmill. Not necessarily. Nobody has to be running on a treadmill. If you have people working in your company who feel like they're running on a treadmill, well, eventually they're going to get tired too, and they're going to quit. So what you want to do is have a bigger process to where you have the right people doing the right things. But nobody should feel like they're running on a treadmill because everybody gets tired of running on a treadmill. There's no human who doesn't get tired of that. Sir Ken said, strategy is a guide to action tactics, how you implement. Yes, you got it. Someone should, can you do this and still keep your soul? Can you do what? What are you referring to? Adam F. KRM said, destined for greatness. You talking about me or you talking about you? I think you're talking about both of us. Gene said, I used to watch hoop videos. All right, that's what's up. I appreciate it. All right, let's see what we got on IG. If you got a question on IG or a comment on IG, go ahead and post it in the comments section. I think I saw one or two. Let me address. Oh, yes. I'm glad you saw that. Miss Right Time. Time said, been a fan since 2011. Shout out to people who were watching me in 2011. I remember 2011. I was putting on like 4 videos a day in 2011. 4 videos a day on YouTube alone, not on all this other stuff, not on these places, but on YouTube alone. I remember that. Built says tactics would be play-by-play basis. That's fair enough to say. Strategy would more an entire off-season goal or approach. Yeah, that's a fair analogy. What you said there, you got a good idea. You got a good idea of it. Question is, what time do I go live? Between 8 and 8:30 Eastern. Between 8 o'clock a.m. and 8:30 Eastern is when I do these live. So work on your game university, folks. Any of you would like to work with me directly, that's the place where we do all our coaching. You get access to all of our trainings. I take these, when these lives come off of whatever platform you're watching me on, they go into the back end of the university because people do want to be able to rewatch these, and you can alter the speed. You can come back and check them anytime. And any old ones that are no longer on here, they're not old, but because they're evergreen topics, but they will be in the back end of Work on Your Game University. So when you're a member of the university, you have access to all this stuff forever. So even if you miss something or you want to hear something again, that's where you catch it in the university. Again, get access to me as a coach, get on our live training calls, get our access to all of our courses. We have 40 plus courses, over 3,000 lessons inside of our university. And of course, we're always adding new material because I create new material literally every day, because every time I do one of these, we're adding new materials to the university. So any of you want to work with me directly, that's your next step. It is the link in my bio on this app, the one I'm looking at right now, this one right here. And over here, you can probably see it in the comment, the pinned comment, whatever you are watching. So let's see what else we got. Somebody said, Tam said, I enjoy the confidence and conversations that you bring to the table. Thank you. I appreciate that. Me too. So again, we do these lives. I start between 8 o'clock and 8:30 Eastern, Monday through Friday. I usually don't do them on weekends, but if I do, have one on the weekend. It may be at a different random time, but usually not on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, 8 to 8:30 for now. That is for the foreseeable future. That's when I'll be doing these lives. So that's when y'all can catch me. We usually go about 30 minutes. Sometimes I go a little bit over, depending on the topic. Sometimes I might go a little bit longer if I got more things to say, or there's some comments that I think I need to respond to, because sometimes I get, actually not sometimes, but I'll tell you all right, how I'm able to create so much material. Oh yeah, let me tell you all one more thing. I have a show called Work on Your Game. It's a audio show. Most of y'all call that a podcast. I put those out every single day. And today we are on episode, let me tell you what number episode we're on. My show called Work on Your Game. Today's episode is episode number 3028. So we put out 3028 episodes, 3028 days in a row is how long we've been putting this show out. All right. So if you want to hear more from me, even if you missed these lives, tune into my show. Just subscribe to it. It's an audio show. It's free. Find it on Spotify or Apple. It is called Work on Your Game. All right. Everybody got that? Work on Your Game. That's where you can find that show. Comes out every single day. And then your next step from there and from here is Work on Your Game University. So the reason why I'm able to put out so much material is not because I just geniusly come up with these topics on my own, sitting in an empty room by myself. Now, some of them I do come up with just randomly, just thinking about things, but it's the engagement with you all that helps me come up with new content. So the reason why I read the comments and I respond to people's comments is sometimes, not all the time, somebody will say something in the comment and I'm like, that's a good thing that they said, even if what they said is incorrect, even if what they said I think is based on a faulty idea. I know that there are other people who probably think the same way. So then I'll go make some material addressing that so that I can help a bunch of people instead of just talking to one person. So this is the reason why I respond to comments and I read comments, because comments sometimes are source material for the next thing I'm going to talk about. So that's the reason why I engage. As long as someone's bringing something of substance, then it's useful. Somebody said, everyone's selling a course. I'm not selling a course. What course am I selling? What's the name of the course that I'm selling? If I'm selling a course, somebody let me know. I didn't know I was selling a course. What's the name of the course I'm selling? Work on Your Game University is a program. It's more than a course. And yeah, right, Ross. Yeah, right. All right. So everybody, we are wrapping this up. Everybody have a great day. Work on your game. We out of here.